So what is Google's new gaming platform? It's called Stadia. I like the name, Stadia, basically bringing people together to play games. It's a streaming platform, so you don't own any box per se to play it. If you have Chrome on your phone, on your tablet, on your computer, on your television set, you can play games through Stadia. Now, they singled out Chromecast Ultras in order to play on your TV, and then anything else, it doesn't have to have any particular spec on your device where you're, streaming these games, because all the heavy lifting is done from the data center. They said that the data center basically is the platform. So that has a whole host of implications as far as upgrading this console, if you want, if you will. You don't have to ever buy a box for this. All the upgrades are going to be done on the back end. So we'll get into all the specs in a bit, but the overview on this is that it's a streaming video game service that you access through Chrome. So when is Stadia going to launch? Well, it's going to launch in 2019, this year, and the next update we're going to get is the summer of 2019. So I would imagine probably sometime in the fall of 2019, unless they just spring it on us this summer. And of course, when we talk summer, we're talking about Northern Hemisphere, because right now it's the latter stages of winter. If you want to stay up to speed on the announcements of this streaming service, you can go to Stadia.com. This is going to initially launch in the United States, in the UK, in Canada, and most of Europe. Unfortunately, there has been no price point announced. So what games can you play on Stadia? Well, they really didn't go into detail about any one particular game, but throughout the press conference, we did see that they had made some announcements of some partner studios. The first of which is, and I took some notes here, the first of which is their first-party studio, which is called Stadia Games and Entertainment, and it's headed up by Jade Raymond. There are over 100 partner studios that are going to be making games for this platform, and they're going to be AAA games on Stadia. 2K was one of the companies where they showed a demonstration of NBA 2K playing on Stadia. Crystal Dynamics was another company. id Software. Ubisoft, of course, Ubisoft had done Assassin's Creed Odyssey on Project Stream late last year, which was what ended up becoming Stadia. Tequila Works and Q Games were also announced as making games for this platform. There are a lot of game engines that will run on this platform. Some of the ones that were of note were Unreal, Unity, Vulkan, and Havok. So number 4, how are we going to play games on Stadia? Well, I've never seen a lower barrier of entry to play a video game in my life. All you have to do is click on a link somewhere, whether that's on a web page, whether that's on a tweet, whether that's through an email. They even showed off at the end of a YouTube video, where you can click on links at the end. You could even click on a link at the end of a YouTube video and launch the game. So a company could have a trailer for their game and then have a link at the end of that trailer where you can just jump right in to play that game. And there are no downloads to play that game. Everything is instant, and they said it could be in as little as 5 seconds you could be off and playing that game. Now, the actual implementation of this is going to be interesting because I never tried out Project Stream, which was the beta test basically for this, to see, what kind of internet connection you're going to need for this to work properly. But by all accounts, it worked very well. So that's going to be one of the few question marks involved with this. But the barrier to entry is very low. You're going to be able to stream this, like we mentioned before, on basically any device that has Chrome on it or a Chromecast. And there's no downloads. It's just right into it. The other thing about this is that you can play it on multiple devices. So you can start on your phone and move to your computer, and then move to your tablet, and then move to your television set. The way they showed it, it was pretty impressive, and it was pretty seamless. So what's the Stadia controller look like? Well, there is an official Stadia controller, and it's pretty interesting because the device itself, the controller, is pretty much the only Stadia device that you can buy when it's going to be available. It's not available right now. But the Stadia controller actually connects through your home wireless network through Wi-Fi directly to the Google servers. So it connects directly to Stadia. And supposedly it's smart enough to be able to know what device you're using. So you can use that Stadia controller to play games on your phone, and then use that same controller to move to your tablet, to move to your computer, to move to your television set. Supposedly this device is going to be smart enough to know when you move to these different screens. Also, you can play with your own controller, so bring your own, and USB controller was singled out, so we don't know anything about wireless controllers at this time. Basically, it's BYO USB-C. Bring your own USB controller. So any controller that you have, you can use for this game service. Also, I saw in the press conference that you could do a keyboard and mouse on this. So basically, whatever input device you have on your device that you have Chrome on, that you're actually streaming to, you can use to control this. So what resolution are we going to be able to play these games in? You would think one of the benefits of owning your own hardware that's pushing the graphics to your television set or to your computer monitor is going to be superior to a streaming service. Well, the goal for Stadia is to have 4K content in HDR at 60 frames a second with surround sound at launch this year. And then they're going to push that up to 8K in the future. So what's the hardware that's running these games at the Google data centers? Well, I go back to my notes here. We have an AMD custom chip or chipset that is running at 10.7 teraflops. And the interesting metric that they used at the press conference is that 10.7 teraflops is greater than a PlayStation 4 Pro and Xbox One X combined. So there's a lot of computation power involved in one of these, what they call instances of Stadia. Stadia is going to be running on Linux. This is a Linux-friendly channel here, so that's really interesting to me. These games are going to be running on Google's backbone. So what that means is less lag in multiplayer games. It also means no cheating and no hacking, which is a good thing. So there's a couple of things that are interesting about not owning your own hardware in your house. Number one, you'll never have to upgrade because they'll do that at the server level on the back end. Another thing is that you're going to be able to play games that might use 2 GPUs instead of one, the equivalent of having 2 consoles in your house connected together somewhere to run one game. Now that game could be a single player experience or it could be a multiplayer experience. And you're not going to be dividing that, what they call an instance of Stadia, that one data center machine that's running your game. You're not going to have you're not going to have to split that computation power in half if you're playing a multiplayer game, because everybody playing that game is going to have their own Stadia instance playing, whether it's in one household or whether you're playing thousands of miles apart. So the scalability is very interesting, and it's going to just lead to better quality games for the gamer, provided that you're going to be able to play this seamlessly over the internet. For me, that again is one of the big question marks going into this. So next up we have features, and we have a ton of features on this. So I'm going to read from my list here. Number one, you have parental controls. You would expect that out of a service, any video game service. You have deep YouTube integration, and we'll go into that in detail here as we go on. But as I mentioned before, you could click on the link at the end of a YouTube video and launch right into a game. One of the things that they had touted on this is build, play, and watch. So Stadia is here to unite people who build games, people who play games, and people who watch games. And at least the latter two of that involves YouTube. So YouTube integration is going to be very interesting and very important to this new platform. So there's a state share ability on this. So pretty much think of this as being able to share your game save with somebody, but very easily. So you're playing a game and you have a section that you want to maybe a difficult section, maybe it's a boss battle, maybe it was something that was, interesting in the game. You can actually share that section of the game with other people. And this goes back to the YouTube integration. So you could actually play this section of the game, share it on YouTube, and then somebody watching that can actually play that same state share is what they call it. And that to me is mind-blowing. That's something that's new to video gaming, because typically with a video game right now, you buy a game, however it is physical or a download, and you play that game and you have to get to that part yourself. But with this state share, you can actually just share a section of a game and say, hey, this was really cool, do you want to try it out? And share it out, and somebody can play that exact same section of a game that you were talking about. Now, Q Games is working on a game specifically with this state share feature in mind. So that's going to be interesting to see what they do with that. So Google Assistant is heavily integrated into Stadia as well. In fact, if you buy the official Stadia controller, there's a Google Assistant button on there. And what this means to you is that if you get stuck in a game, all you have to do is press that Google Assistant button and then ask it a question, how do I get out of this situation in this game? And it'll show you. So that's pretty cool. So there's cross-platform play with Stadia. So if you're playing a game on a different service or a different console, provided that console supports cross-play, you're going to be able to keep your progression in a game, your game saves, all that fun stuff. So the last feature of note from this conference was called Crowd Play. And basically what that is that if you're streaming a game live on YouTube and somebody comes to watch that game, they can actually join in on that game, provided that game's a multiplayer game. And you, as a person who's streaming this, can have some sort of control over who can join in and whatnot. That wasn't fleshed out in the press conference, but it's interesting because I've never seen something like that before, where you're actually live streaming a game and somebody that's watching that live stream has the opportunity to join in on that multiplayer experience. So why is Google getting into gaming? Well, during this press conference, Sundar Pichai had said that gaming pushes computing forward. And it's really true, because on a mass scale, there's really no need to buy a very beefy machine unless you're doing photo editing, unless you're doing video editing, but most people don't do that. The mass market, why people are buying beefy machines, heavy hardware, is basically gaming. So that's why you have these high-end GPUs, that's why you have these high-end CPUs. So that's one aspect of it, but that doesn't really explain why Google is getting into this. I mean, Google is a company that collects data and either produces a product based on that collection of data, or they sell advertisements against that. Well, there's a lot to learn from play. Look at the natural world for that. From animals to humans, children tend to play a lot because what it does is it prepares them for real life situations that might not be play involved. So Google learning from play, there's a lot to be learned. What people focus on when they play a game. They can actually see what they're looking at, what the tendencies are. There's a lot of data that can be collected from this. But also, a lot of this dovetails with YouTube. During the conference, they mentioned that 50 billion hours of gaming content was consumed from YouTube in 2018 alone. That's a huge number. So gaming is a big part of YouTube. It's also an avenue that Google can make money in. So not only does it support existing businesses by data collection and supporting YouTube, but it's also a new source of revenue that they can bring money in from, because gaming is bigger than the movie industry. So as far as entertainment goes, it's way bigger than movies. So there's a lot to be gained from Google for launching the service, not only from the service itself, but having a game where you need low latency. When you have an input on this controller to control a game and then to have that game bounced back to you so you can see it, all of that dovetails with Google's business very nicely, because Google is basically an information company that's on the internet, and any technological gain that they can get from reducing latency from playing a game can be applied to all of their other services that they offer. So in conclusion, what do I think of Google's new product, Stadia? Well, it interests me incredibly. I love new technologies. I've been very bored with cell phones and a lot of technology that's out there. This is a new trend that I can kind of jump on and evaluate as it goes on. So in that aspect, being new, shiny, and different, it really appeals to me. The questions I have in mind are, number one, the price. Google's got to make money off of this somehow. Is it going to be ad related? Are you going to be able to play all this stuff for free, but you're going to have to watch ads to do it? Is there going to be a multi-tiered service model for this? Are you going to be able to maybe play for free or pay a premium, a monthly premium, and not have the ads? All of that is up in the air. The other thing that's really important about this is performance. If it's not performing like advertised, it's not going to get widespread adoption. Are you going to need the best of the best internet for this to work? I never tried out Project Stream, so I don't know how that works, although, hearing secondhand, I heard it worked well. But that's going to be the deciding factor on this. Is this going to be playing just as if you had the hardware in your house? So that's a big question in my mind. But Google's a smart company. They deliver a lot of great products and services, so I'm open-minded to see what they're going to be delivering. They have a lot of smart people working there, and for this division, they're taking it seriously. They have a lot of game veterans, people from the game industry who have worked there for years. Phil Harrison, who worked for Sony, who worked for Microsoft, is working on this project. So I think that they're taking this seriously, and that's good to hear. So I'd like to hear what you guys have to say about all this. What do you think about Google's Stadia service? If you have any questions, comments, whatever, just post them down below. If you want to help out this channel, you can give me a thumbs up. You can subscribe to this channel if you like what you see. You can share my video on your favorite social media. You can join your Patreon, all of which is greatly appreciated. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.